Profit Monkey Music today. We have Jaymz Lennfield. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you, Sean?
Good, good. This is kind of fun. I've been a fan of you for a while, actually. I don't. I'll be honest with you. I don't even know how I came across you guys. I'm a big Metallica fan, but I'm also a huge Beatles fan. So it was
Okay.
only a matter of time before the swords you cross the streams. I guess the swords would cross,
Sure,
right?
right.
So so that people aren't aware, you are the lead vocalist and singer, guitarist of Beatallica. You do a mixture of Beatles influenced Metallica songs. You put your own twist on them too. I mean, just the smart music in it also in the songs, the way you convert and stuff.
Yeah, but it's sort of the Bermuda Triangle of rock, you know what I mean? You got the Beatles and the Metallica, and then our own influx of comedy and lyricism and chord progressions, and depending on what the song is, I mean, there might be more or less of one or the other, you know.
Yeah. Well, and some of it feels like it's funny, like, oh, like I get why that song should have been like "Hey Dude" or something. It's pretty funny, but there is some real strong musicality in the music too. You guys are a good band, so it's not like it's just
Yeah.
a joke band. You're a serious bunch of musicians that play fun music.
Yeah, I mean, all four of us write, not just for this band, but for our own other bands, I mean,
Yeah.
like I play in a Celtic rock band. Our drummer plays in a 50s band. Our guitar player does like this jazz rock thing, and our bass player plays in other like heavier bands and has done other more psych stuff. And so we're all,
Wow.
putting in other influences, and we do other things besides
Right.
just playing, we're involved in the audio industry and the booking industry and merching and all those other things. So there's a lot of things that go into the band. Each person kind of brings in their own, own part, own flavor to it. Um, but when it comes down to songwriting, I mean, I think, collectively we have 120 years worth of songwriting, under our belts because we've been doing it all forever,
Right.
so.
Well, I imagine it's funny because I mean everyone tries different things, and then when you're not really focusing, I imagine this was one of the bands. This is probably one of your bigger bands that you guys weren't focusing on, thinking this was going to be the bigger band. And when you're not paying
Yeah,
attention, what you're not paying
when it
attention to
first
usually
started,
pops up being the biggest. When you're not paying attention to something, that's usually the thing that kind of surprises everybody.
yeah, when it first started, I wasn't in a rock band. I was doing solo acoustic stuff. So yeah, that's how that went.
At the danger of making you repeat the story, could you give me a little brief synopsis of how they actually came about? Because I actually don't know that, and I'm sure a lot of people aren't familiar with you guys and will check you guys out,
Sure,
aren't they?
yes.
Just a
So there's
small
a
version.
there's a festival here in Milwaukee called Spoof Fest, which I book now. Um, as where bands we kind of say they emulate and desecrate their favorite bands, you know what I mean? So
Yep.
one year we did the works of Metallica with an M, you know, and it's on April Fool's Day. So we said, well, what would Metallica do as an April Fool's joke? We ended up making some MP3s, songs, chose these Beatles collections, got them on a CD, handed them out. They hit the internet. The internet did its own thing with them. Um, and then months later, we started realizing what was going on. So that's a very short version of the story. There are all sorts of idiosyncrasies and twists and turns that go along with this story. Um, a good way for people to find out about it is if you go to our website, which is beatallica.org. There's a guy out in Sacramento. His name's Mike King. He did basically a documentary on the band, and he works for this thing called Ruling Note Music. But if you go to our website, you can get
Mm-hmm.
to a link on it, or if you get to our YouTube channel, the Beatallica official YouTube channel, you can find that documentary on the channel, and it's an extensive documentary. It will go through all the twists and turns for the most part of what's going on with it. It's lengthy and interesting, and I can tell you there's nothing that ever happened like it before, and there's nothing that happened like it since. So um, that's one
I've
of the
been on your
things that
channel.
I'm kind of
You
proud
know,
of,
no, well,
So
that's good. I think, and actually, I do put the links underneath the shows on the podcast and on YouTube. Uh, but I've been on your web page, it's nice, and I've been on your YouTube page too. You have a lot of different stuff. You do a lot of commentary stuff, small bits and pieces. It's not just a video once in a while on there. You like
Yeah.
to add to
Oh
it and
yeah.
update it, which is kind of
Oh
fun
yeah.
because if you're not doing content consistently, it's hard for people to go back and check it because it's just so
Yep.
much. It's not even anybody's fault. Even I, who switching to music, I've been buried. You just can't keep up with everything anymore. You
Oh
know?
yeah. I mean, everything is too accessible and there's too much of it, right?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I get it. Yeah. I mean, we like doing like little clips, and we'll be doing that throughout the tour and everything coming up for sure. We'll be
So
adding
let's
to that.
so let's talk about you. So you got a new album out.
The
Let's talk about
Devolver
that.
album.
Yep.
Yeah. That came out over COVID. So we've not toured extensively over it. The world was doing what it was doing. Things were getting canceled and delayed and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So now we're leaving to support that album. So that album it's a year and a half old, you know what I mean? So, but like a lot of bands, they have product out and
Yeah, it doesn't really
that's
count
how that went
nowadays.
down.
Yeah. The COVID time doesn't count for people with a new album. They're like, well,
Yeah.
you couldn't tour it. It's not really against you. It's not like you weren't doing anything else.
Yeah.
It's like the pause
Yeah.
button was hit for a while for
Uh,
music.
we have,
Yeah.
we have a
Oh,
guest appearance by Peter Chris here.
the cat. Nice.
So yeah, so we're touring on record. Um, the album features a song called "Here Comes Revenge." That's the name of the tour.
Hmm.
Now that song we've been playing live even before we recorded the record. We were playing that on the tour previous, and it's one of the songs that actually made the record. All the other stuff is new material, and we actually saved some stuff. We got it in the can in the studio, and it hasn't been released yet. That'll come down the pipe. Um, so yeah, so I mean we're happy with it. Our guitar player Gerg Hamilton thinks it's our strongest record. So we're anxious to get it out there for folks. If people want to hear it in advance, again they can. If they dial anything up on YouTube or Spotify or Apple, you can hear all that.
There's
Um,
like
that-
four
that's
albums out there and
Yeah,
two
we have four
EPs.
albums and two
Two
EPs.
EPs. Okay, yeah, all right, I'm right. I'm right.
Yeah.
I have them on my phone. So, but it's really interesting because I think you're in a good spot where bands that are funny but not considered joke bands, you can still be a good musicians and have fun, and it's a lot more. Uh, I don't not accessible, but like people are getting it without being like you're mocking the Beatles, you're mocking these guys. I think
Hmm.
Tragedy is a perfect example. I've actually had the guitar player on Mo on the show before of
Cool.
Tragedy. I think they're hilarious too. I'm a big fan of bands like this. I enjoy them as much as I like serious rock bands. So I think there's room for everybody. You know,
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about the whole mocking thing, I mean, we've been accused of mocking and worse of of either of these bands. More so the Beatles side. Though that side is real sensitive.
well, it's just
Um,
funny because the Beatles really would probably laugh at it. If anybody doesn't take themselves seriously, it was the Beatles.
well, I think that, I mean, just with Harrison's relationship with Monty Python, you would think
Totally.
that you know. So
Oh
yeah, but
no.
yeah, we've been approached aggressively on numerous and more than numerous occasions because of what we've done. You know.
It's crazy because anybody that wants to put the time to learn a musician's music, there could be people that are out there that just learn it to be spiteful to make a joke out of it. I don't know. Seems like a lot of work to me. To, to,
Yeah.
to, Especially the way you guys do it. You guys are recording songs and albums. Like it's a whole thing for you. So like that's that's a really twisted, perverted way to insult a band. If
Yeah,
anything, I
I
mean,
know, right?
when
Yeah,
someone,
you figure we could do something
yeah,
else.
I mean, the fact that someone puts so much time into an artist's music, whether they interpret differently or have fun with it or make it enjoyable, you're still hearing it. You're still thinking, I still get to listen to you guys, and I'm like, I gotta listen to Metallica, and I gotta listen to the Beatles. Like, it goes back in my world again. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
you know, it,
Yeah, I mean,
it's
if
so it's
anything, we're going after other bands.
right,
We're going after some glam bands. We're not going
yeah,
after the Beatles or Metallica on it. So,
right. So I mean, that's where it's kind of funny. So I mean, it is weird. I think Steel Panther kind of like probably took a lot of heat at first, breaking through and doing that of the genre recently of my mind. I really
yeah.
kind of took the beat down either the hard line of whether serious rock or it's you can't have fun in rock, you know. And they're like on their fifth or sixth album or whatever, and they're showing, yeah, you can rock and you can have fun. Don't take yourself
Sure.
seriously. A lot of the artists are doing it now. So now, tragedy is getting bigger, and you guys are continually growing. Which is fantastic because it's good music, it's fun, and it's tongue in cheek.
Yeah.
It's still good music.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, there's bands out there that approach it in different ways. Everyone's got their formula with how they do it. We happen to have ours, and that's what works for us. That's a sort of it quells our own creative instincts as well
Yep,
because we put so much of our own stuff and our own twist to it, our own approach to it.
yep,
I think that if we were trying to do it a different way, and that was the only option, we wouldn't be satisfied with it. We wouldn't be
yep,
happy with it. But again, everyone's got their own way that they do things. I just know that the way that Beatallica does things is that there's no other band that does things the way that we do it. Now that could either be something that says, well, maybe there's a reason why no one else does this. Or maybe it's because we've come up with something that's pretty damn cool, and we like to think the latter.
as would I. I wouldn't be investing time and trying to help get people to check you out if I didn't feel the same way. And I do respect. Like I say, any musician that goes out and plays anything, I give them props. Now, will I give my limited time to their audience? For me, no, but I can respect if they want to do it or other people want to do it. If I'm going to put time
Sure.
into a band,
Yeah.
it's going to have to offer something different for me. So to me, a band like you guys or Steel Panther or Tragedy offers something of type of music I like, of other bands I like, but add something, bring something to the party. You know, you know, you're bringing your chips and your salsa and yourself. So you're bringing everything to the party. It's not just
Yeah,
one
right.
thing. You know what I mean? So it makes it more fun. The personality. You're like, oh, I wouldn't have thought of that. Um, and as I was talking about Tragedy, it's more of a lead-in. Let's talk about. So you got a tour coming up. How did you guys end up hooking up together?
Yeah.
Because it's quite an interesting combo.
The same booking agent.
Oh, really?
It's booked through an agency. Yeah, it's booked through an agency called Dynamic, and they were the ones that hooked us up together. Now, we've been familiar with Tragedy for some time, because we've been going to New York for 15 years,
Yep.
so we were familiar with everything that Tragedy was doing. And then when they said, "Hey, you know, we're gonna get you guys together as tour partners, is that cool?" Or it's like, "Yeah, that's totally cool." Because initially, Beatallica was gonna route this tour into a different part of the U.S. But then when we found out that Tragedy was up to be a tour partner, we kept it East Coast because they're from the East Coast,
Yeah.
and we've been out to the East Coast, I mean, at least 7, 8 times, so it kind of made more sense to kind of route it that way. So that's great that we're going
Have
to
you
be
played
doing that.
together
And
yet?
so it's a co-headlining.
Have
What's
you guys
that?
played together? Have you guys ever shared a show yet?
No, but when they were in Milwaukee just recently, I went to the gig and I checked it out and we met and we hung out and everything like that.
They're
So
hilarious
that should
too.
be all good, But it'll be a flip-flop co-headlining tour, so that some shows they headline, some shows we headline. There'll be a local um, at every city. Um, and one of the cool things is, at least in 3 of the cities, the local bands, they contacted us directly and said, "Hey, man, we would love to be a part of the bill. How can we do this?" We got them in touch with
That's
whatever
really cool.
local promoter and stuff like that, and got them on the bill. So that's totally cool. That's super important to be supporting, local
Yeah.
folks who want to be a part of this.
Do they have
So
a
that
fun
I think
twist on
that's
their
cool.
music too, or are they serious? Or are they serious, or do they have a fun twist also?
It kind of depends. It kind of depends. But I can say this, and this is a fact. There are 3 Beatallica cover bands in the world.
Really?
Not Metallica, Beatallica cover bands. Yes, who have written us and said, "Hey, we're going to be a cover band of you." And so I'm like, "Okay, wait a second. Let me get this straight. You from South America, who speaks Portuguese, you want to cover a Yankee who's covering another Yankee who's covering a Brit. Do I got that right?" And they're like,
Uh,
"Yes." I'm like,
that's like really
"Great." But
the kids would say meta. It's very meta. So That's kind of blowing my mind. I think what do they call themselves? It's pretty crazy to have another version
I'd
of
have
your
to go
name.
back and see it,
That
but
is
I know there's
crazy to
one from
see.
Eastern Europe and there's one from Asia and there's one from South America.
Well, that's flattering. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's pretty weird, eh?
Well, it is, but it's kind of fun with the songs, though. You know what I mean? Because they are good songs. They're fun renditions, and I think especially Metallica fans really get it. And I think if you're a Metallica fan, and we're all about the same age, you're also fans of the Beatles, and you may have different phases of the Beatles you like, but you're
Oh,
also
that makes
Beatles
a
fans.
difference on the composition for sure. Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Are you using the sugary, bubblegummy, poppy Beatles, pre-65, or are you going, more psych age Beatles, 67 and later, I mean, how are you rolling with that, so
Well, because you
it's a big
guys
difference.
mix in really good in the songs too. And like I'm talking about like all the songs, I can't really get into every single one, but as I'm talking, but listen to the songs, it's great because like I think if I did it, my approach would always want to be going like the polar opposite for each song I was combining. That wouldn't make sense. But you don't do that because that would be too almost it would be too easy if you assume everything's gonna be the opposite because it's not. Some of it you're like, oh man, that really fits. Like it's so like you just really don't know. It's not that easy just to guess. Because sometimes you do go the
Yeah.
other way. Sometimes you actually invert how they
Yeah.
connect,
Yeah, I
which is
mean,
smart.
we still have songs that we've wanted to work with for years, but they're still on the cutting room floor because we just didn't find the right combo, you know. But I know on this tour, with Tragedy, we are aiming to have a new song done for the tour. And I mean not one that's on the Devolver album. I
Wow.
mean a new song. Now this song is on its fifth version, either lyrically or chord wise, or what is the combo, So we hope to have it done, in time for the tour. We want to make sure it's solid enough to
Yeah.
play. Um, but yeah, we went through three three Beatle inclusions before we decided on what we wanted to use. I cannot divulge what that is.
No, that's okay. It's actually just hearing this is good
More
because
to
I
see.
think people that don't write music or are bands are like, oh, that's just easy. They just take this song, smash them together. They're not realizing the layers and the time put into it's still like a new song, but you're actually taking two legendary songs and you got to blend them together, and you want to feel good about it because you
Yeah.
don't want to say
Yeah,
you
and
don't
that's
want
the
a,
thing.
a car crash of two legendary songs and you'd be the one
Yeah,
singing it because that would be
right.
a personal nightmare.
Yeah, and that's the thing about Beatallica. It's not like there's one song and then all of a sudden it goes into another song.
Right.
Or it's not like here's the entire melody of one influence and the entire lyrics, and we're just going to do it in a different style. That's not how Beatallica does it. Everything is intertwined.
Yeah.
Lyrics, melody, composition, nothing is slammed or nothing is just altered per style. That's not what we're doing,
I,
and
I,
that's
I
why I'm
agree
such
with you. I
a
agree with
fan.
you. And I think,
You know,
obviously, hopefully fans will watch. It's already fans, but my big goal is to get a lot of newer fans. And I think it's important. Like when I listen to the music and I listen to it, but then like recently I listened to, I went and listened to it with my podcast, like to talk to him thinking, what was the song structure? I'm thinking, to me, it feels like it's almost like you remember the game Pickup Sticks. You
sure.
take the box of sticks and you drop. It was like a bunch of sticks and you drop them. They're different colors and they layer on top of each other. You have to pull them out without knocking yours over. That's kind of what the songs are like. Like you just can't pull out because but it's like it's so layered. Each piece connects to the other, and that's how you're building it. So you need each piece. Otherwise,
Yeah,
you pull out the wrong thing, it collapses, and the song would collapse if you didn't have that small part that maybe I don't know which it is, but you know what it is that ties each part
yeah.
together. And that
Oh
takes
yeah,
time
for
and
sure.
skill. It's not just you just guys riffing on two songs together,
Yeah,
and
that's not the way that works. If it was, um, we probably would have become frustrated a long time ago
right. But I mean,
with how things were.
it's good for me to I like to say that I can say that loud because I think just like a lot of people, you get a band like Metallica, they're like, how come it takes X amount of years to write an album? They don't get the process. For some people, it's just different. I mean, if you can't get
Sure.
something, if you can't understand a band that big, or like why the Beatles broke up and wrote 18 billion albums in like 5 years, so like like because everybody's different. So like I just like to people to hear the process behind it to understand and kind of appreciate the time that an artist does with any of their music. You know.
I remember when I was younger, and the first Boston album came out.
Oh God,
And
they're
then
like legendary.
it took them like 7 years to write the next record or something like that. And back then people were just like, "Oh my God, 7 years." But it's just like, man, now you look at stuff like, how long did it take for Tool to put out a record? And I mean
Yeah,
it's just like it's a process because not only is it a process for their own band, but they're doing other things with their lives.
right.
Maybe they're doing audio in a different way. They're doing production in a different way. Maybe they're doing a whole different art form. And now I'm going to get back to music.
You
You
have
got
to
to
let it
give
marinate.
artists room to, you got to give
Right.
them room to create, and not just do what you want them to do. You got to give them room what they want to
Right.
do and on their own pace. Otherwise, it's not going to come out. It's not going to come out right. It's going to be crummy, and no one wants
Well,
that.
yeah, you let artists do the art, you let it breathe, you let it. And let me say about Boston. I mean, let's face it. That first album, he built an entire recording studio and invented. He didn't have stuff that he needed. They wanted to record, so he invented tools that were later redeveloped. Even more to recording,
Yeah,
like now you record like one of the most classic debut albums, but he also like reinvent audio recording while he
yeah,
was doing it. I mean,
right.
no one knew at the time how brilliant he was doing that. That's just like another layer. I think we had a whole episode just talking about
Yeah,
how brilliant that is. But the point is, you didn't know. Nobody knew. You think, oh, he's just riffing on his couch. No, he was like
right.
doing stuff. You know, there's
Yeah,
a whole world out
yeah,
there.
for sure.
And if and I think that's why if you look at COVID right now, well, not COVID, but if you look at the time, the break everybody got, and you look at all the bands, it's easier to say like rock bands because that's mostly what the fan base is right here. Look at the new albums they're all putting out. They're good. There's a lot of good albums coming out. They had a lot of time
Oh,
to sit
sure.
down and focus and just relax without having to do a tour. Rush. Oh, they got an album. They got a
Yeah,
one album deal. Better get it out for so and so label because they don't get deals like that anymore. They had time to put some great stuff together the way they would want to and release it when they were ready.
yeah.
And that's what bands
I mean,
need.
during COVID, I wrote an entire solo record of folk
Nice.
stuff. Yeah, wrote it, recorded it. Yeah, that was my COVID project. Beatallica was still there,
Right.
of course, but no one was gigging, you know. So it's like, hey man, we just kind of did like some of our own stuff. And that's
So
all.
did you guys
That's
get
all.
together besides working on the album? Or did you guys like take a little bit of a break too from it?
Yeah, well, I mean, our bass player, Dr. Rob Stuhio, lives up in the Twin Cities, though he's originally from the Milwaukee area. But so he's not around generally when we're not touring or playing or something like that, because he's in like 3, 4 bands and running around doing all that. But when Beatallica is dormant, there's always something going on, even if we're not playing, because we might be planning the next
Well, that's what I mean. Yeah.
round of gigs, you know what I mean? Or working on this or that or whatever, there's always something going on. Um, which is good. It just might be behind the scenes. Um, I mentioned before I play in a Celtic rock band. Sure, that band was busy for about 2 months earlier this year, and
Yeah.
now it's dormant. But it doesn't mean there's nothing going on. We're working on video stuff, and we have a whole slew of shows once Beatallica gets back home. It's just that's just how the calendar works. It's
Yeah. So yeah, this can be kind of tricky with every because a lot you're not alone. I mean, there's so many musicians are in so many different bands. Obviously, the bigger the bands, the ones that brings in the most money, is it just economically makes most sense too to make that your
Mhm.
main band. I mean, this would be foolish like
Yeah,
having a job and having a couple jobs or whatever, and part-time jobs, and the one that makes the most should be your full-time job because you still have to live.
yeah, yeah, sure. Yeah, but you still gotta want to do what you want to do too.
Right. Well, that's
You
something.
know,
That's the challenge of a musician nowadays because you have to still balance paying your bills with working and the media of the world now is so different, you know?
Yep. Yep. Oh yeah, and and playing music, it's like there's this thing out there called insurance,
Yep.
health insurance. Um, you know, people are on the marketplace, and
Yeah.
how's health insurance and stuff like that, and dealing with some of that life stuff, you know,
Yeah.
getting
I know a lot of
yourself ready
musicians have
for.
jobs just with so they can have life insurance. They kind of try to do less of the job as possible, but they do it just so they can have life insurance.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I know other musician folks that like they might have a day gig and it's like, yeah, I'm doing as little of this day gig as possible, just enough to allow me to do my musician gig,
Yeah.
and that's great.
And I did say definitely props to that because it's just one extra challenge. If you love music and you're flying the flag of music, and that's actually this show started because during COVID, nobody was touring. Local bands couldn't play. Other bigger bands couldn't play. And I was like, always been a fan of music and recording. I have my own music background, but I do IT now, and I'm like, I know how hard it is. So let's start using some media skills and get attention to these people and encourage people go to the website, buy the merch. And now it's go to the website, buy the merch, and go to the shows now
Yep,
because we're back out now. But
yep,
that I always have myself wave the flag for you guys, all you musicians. It's a rough gig, but you love it, and
yeah,
I think people should support it. I know I
yeah.
do, and it's important when the artists come out. So when Beatallica comes to your town in tragedy, really two stellar bands to begin with, so they'd be really losing out. You know the
Oh
fact
yeah.
that
I mean, it's going to be a super fun run. That's for sure. That is for
yeah,
sure. And here's the thing that folks should know. A lot of these cities are going to be close together. It's like we're doing two in Massachusetts. We're doing Delaware, we're doing Connecticut, New York, New Jersey, you know, Eastern Pennsylvania. Where these cities, it's not like on the West Coast where it's just like, hey, I gotta drive 5 hours to the next show
yeah,
event or whatever. So what Beatallica are gonna do is we have costume changes for every different city and set changes. So like
nice,
let's say someone wanted to go to one of the shows in in
right,
Brooklyn, New York. Well, in New Jersey, we're not doing the same set. So you could go to both gigs and potentially see an entirely different set because we
wow,
have that much material. So that's another cool part about touring,
yeah.
this part of the country. It allows us to do that. So if people want to go to one or whatever shows, two shows, three shows, they're going to see something different. They're not seeing the same thing every night.
That's a really
Um,
good thing, actually, and it puts you in a good spot because on some level, I was going to ask you about this about song choice and stuff. But on some level, you guys and actually tragedy themselves. I love still the Raining Blood men song is hilarious, and all the other stuff is pretty funny. But you guys are already taking two great songs and putting them together, and then have your own twist on them. So it's already like people are already familiar with your songs, so you guys can take all different creative versions of stuff, and people are still a little bit familiar with it because people hate hearing new music for some reason. Me, if I've ever heard the album, unless it's a special thing, I'd be happy hearing all new stuff again. I'm an artist myself, but I'm not the
okay.
guy. I'm not the guy that pays. I'm not gonna be loading up this. There's not a bunch of me who's gonna pay for all the shows for people. Just like one of
Yeah.
me that likes that. The ones that don't want to see new music are
Yeah.
the ones that fill the rooms. So it doesn't make sense. But so for a band like you guys, people know a lot of the songs, even if they don't know Metallica and they come for Tragedy. They go, I know that song. Oh, that's great. And then they're gonna see different if they're Tragedy followers. They'll go to two of their shows and they're like, Metallica to two different sets. Like it really just lends to it. Flip flop for them too. It's really a good thing and it's fun.
Yeah. Yeah. We hope it's going to end up in turning out really well. I mean, you, I think both of us are happy that we're going to be doing the run together, and that should be cool, you know.
It's really cool. It feels like a no brainer to begin with. Do you think like starting off and then doing towns and touring? I mean, do you feel your set list has changed at all? Like, do you feel like in certain areas you're like, there are certain songs we need to play in our hometown area, or like
Yeah.
sometimes it does make a difference. Some people are like, yeah, the South wants to hear these songs. The North likes to hear this. You know what I'm saying? Europe is
I know
really
that there's
intense.
we're doing one show coming up in Covington, Kentucky. It's just outside of Cincinnati. And there's one guy that wrote in and he's like, man, I'm going to the show. I'm bringing some buds. I really hope they play blankety blank. So we're gonna play it. We're gonna play at that show. That's
Awesome.
but it wasn't on our initial set list for the whole tour. But like, okay, for that show, we're gonna do that song. Because people
That's
are
awesome.
chiming in. Yeah, I want to hear that.
And I think listen, this is not ordinary with a lot of bands. This is pretty cool for me to even hear because it's like clearly you are a fan of rock and music, and you're giving a show that you'd have liked to see at times. You know what I mean? Like I'd like to
Sure.
write into this so and so group, the Beatles, whatever band, and be like, yeah, I want to hear this song. Most fans are not
Yeah.
going to get heard. You know what I mean? You have to be in the ear, whether you have to be like a media person or a friend of the band, or you see what I'm saying? Like to be an earshot of a lot of musicians nowadays, you know.
Yeah. Oh
And
yeah.
and the musicians won't always listen because I could talk to them. I'll be like, hey, I think you should do. They're like, I think you need to be quiet, Sean. So I mean, it doesn't always work out like that. But it's
Yeah.
cool that you
I
do
mean,
that.
look, it's just like how many times did I go to see Kiss? You know what I mean? Do I need to hear Beth?
Does anybody need to hear Beth again?
Not really. But
No.
if you played Strange Ways, that'd be great. That'd be awesome.
I always wanted
If
them
you
to do
play
one.
Almost Human, that would be great.
I would like them to do the one whole. I like them to do the Elder, just one whole show, of the Elder, like a whole album. I always thought that would have been a cool idea because there was some kind of neat stuff in it. It would have been a neat concept for at least a one-off for diehards. Just gonna put that
Yeah,
out there.
I know they do that stuff on the Kiss cruise. I've seen them kind of monkey around with some of that
Yeah,
stuff,
but they won't. They'll do the Elder. Elder's a weird thing for people. The Elder is like their Lulu. So actually, I think the Elders are
Yeah.
better than Lulu. So I'm gonna say that right now. And I will say this: being a Metallica person, I respect any artist to do whatever they want to do, and I support Metallica doing Lulu. But man, as much as I want to listen to it, I just can't listen to it.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I mean, I know when it first came out, when Lulu first came out, we were driving in the Midwest. We were heading to like Des Moines or something like that to do a gig out there, and we played it the entire trip.
Oh,
From the moment that we left one venue all the way to Des Moines, we just played it over and over and over. Just like, okay,
hoping to get it. Like
like
yeah, you
what
have
are
to
they
do it.
doing here? It's trying to figure it out, and everything. So
I think
yeah.
if they release that album with just instrumental, I think I'd be better about it. I think that's what I'm not a big Lou Reed fan, is what I think what it really comes down to. But I will fight
That's it.
my
You gotta be a
so much. Yeah,
you
but I
gotta
will
be a Lou
fight.
Reed guy.
It's a monochromatic vocally. There's something about it. I can hear, and I'm into all kinds of crazy vocals. There's something about it. But I will fight to the death that they should have a right to put that album out, and I
Oh,
think they did
absolutely.
it. I 100% like people like it's the worst. I'm like, you don't have to like everything, but man, as a fan of the band, definitely they should do that. They should put it out and have fun. They're artists, definitely. Why shouldn't they?
Yeah.
You don't have to like everything. They
Yeah.
don't care if you like everything. I mean, I wouldn't even
Right.
want Master of Puppets Part Two because there's already Master of Puppets Part One. When you start copying albums that were great, the albums aren't that great anymore. You know what I mean? Like once you start copying that a few times, the first one's not that special anymore, and then it's just gross. So for an
Yeah.
artist to keep
Sure.
trying stuff, that's exciting.
Yeah. Yeah. Right on. Right on.
You know, and that's the way I feel. And so the fact you guys are carrying the torch, I don't know that no one's going to hear these songs like you guys do together ever, and it's pretty fun. It's smart.
Right. That that's what we hope. But that's all we want people to come out. And we can also say this, that if you come see a Beatallica show, we are going to for sure do songs live that will never make an album. So the only place you can hear them is at a live gig. That's another reason to encourage people to come out to the gig, because this is the only place you're going to hear them. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Has COVID gotten better for you guys? Like, I mean, I know a lot of bands that were having okay sales, even mid-tier bands of just like regular of their own artists through the years, 20, 30 years touring. We go town to town to town, the value of your band starts to go. But you need to go town to town for gas and to pay for things. But a lot of bands have changed now. They're just in the festivals. But when COVID hit, it changed the dynamic, and then everybody was really hungry. So when a lot of bands came out now, it feels like everyone's just like so hungry for music. I mean, it'll probably lower down again. It'll probably even out at some point. But do you
Yeah, I
feel
mean,
the crowds have
well,
changed for you guys?
I don't know. I mean, I guess we'll find out. I mean, we'll see in June. I know that last year in 2022, the market was really flooded.
Yes.
really flooded with bands wanting to get out there and tour and stuff, and who can blame them? I
But you
mean,
couldn't
it's
find a
still
van. For smaller bands, right? You couldn't find a
right.
van
Goods and
or a trailer
services.
or an affordable bus, unless you were like a Beyonce or somebody, the big buses, the regular $1,000 a day buses and the trucks and the vans. They're,
Yeah, yeah. Just being, goods and services are
yeah.
scarce. I mean, that's just that's still part of the world
But
today.
nobody thinks about that as far as an artist, because that's another thing an artist has to do. They got to pay for that. You got to pay for the travel, the gas. If Metallica's touring and they got the merch, buy the merch, because you know what? That's extra gas weight that they're pulling behind them. And the profit off the
Yep.
shirts depends on how many colors they do on the shirt. Then they have to guess how many extra larges, how many larges, how many petites. What they have to guess what everybody wants in advance. I can't even just tell you what my kids want, and I live with them. So to decide what a bunch of fans are going to want for which shirt, for which size, would make me batty. So I mean,
Yeah.
these
There's
are
only so
all
much you can do.
calculations, right? But I'm saying,
But
but these are
I
things
yeah.
that you guys have
I
to
know this though. It's
decide.
like at our merch table. Like, let's say we have a design of a shirt and it gets sold out, or an item and it gets sold out. We have receipt books. You can purchase it just like how you would like online.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? And then whatever
right.
distributor
Which
would
is
send
good.
it to the person. We'll have a receipt book. This is how much it is. Sign it, and we'll remanufacture it and send it.
Which is pretty cool. I mean, I'm sure that it helps
Yeah.
too. And I'm sure
So
also at
nothing
some point
is
though,
nothing is ever sold out at our merch table. If you want it,
yeah.
sure, we can do that.
Problem is at a show, people want to touch everything. They're excited. They want, yeah, I don't want to wait for it. I want to leave with a new shirt for tomorrow for work. I want to, put the shirt on.
That's
People
great.
always want to, people want to touch things. So you're like, so order that one and buy this one while you're here. Buy two.
Hmm.
You know, and that is actually what the show in a nutshell. I would say started because I was at a Zappa show, Dweezil Zappa show, and somebody in front of me
Oh,
was complaining about the price of Zappa shirts. It's like $40.
okay.
And I'm like, they have no idea how much it costs to make a shirt and everything it takes. I reached out to Dweezil Zappa. And since I mean, I've done a bunch of shows together. He actually does the theme music for the show. He gave me this. He just gave me the music to use for this. We broke down the cost, and that was like how I started with this whole show, talking about
Sure.
the challenges with an artist. Because an artist is not going to say it. Because an artist, oh, they're complaining or whatever. Just no. Then fine, they don't have to say it. I'll say it, and I'll complain that the artist probably should. It should be understood the challenges they have, and they're not crying about it. But what you could do is put your butt in the seat at the show and buy a shirt.
Sure.
Think about it. You go to a game and how much money you spend on beer, a $10
That's the
beer,
thing.
but and
Yeah.
the beer's gone. The beer's gone. So 4 beers, and you have a shirt that's going to last you for like 20 years. So that's bananas to think
Four
that you're going
beers.
to complain.
Hell, it's just like you can
I don't
spend the
even
money
know.
on one beer in like a bigger city and be able to buy a CD,
Right?
you
Exactly.
know.
My point is like I won't do that. I really have to be. I'm like, man, at this point in my life, if I have to spend that kind of money on beer, I'm an alcoholic. Like I really, I just can't get it out of my system. I'm like, maybe one socially if I'm somewhere, but I can't. I would never be able to just drink like that. You know. Besides, I like to drink alone with a paper bag going behind behind
Right.
a liquor store, right? Like a hobo. No, but I think it's important that people spend their money and think about the perspective of it too. You know,
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
we're it's just silly. That it's not about that. Support the band. Let them make a profit. There's
Well,
not a
it's
big
also
profit,
and also too, if you have shirt designs and CD designs, you have an artist doing that, and that person also gets paid.
and they
So
have
the
to get
band is
paid up front.
supporting that other
Right.
artist,
Mm-hmm. It's a good
and that
point.
other manufacturer.
Yeah, and
So
you
there's
and
other people who want folks to go to gigs
yeah,
and buy shirts because it means the band will go back to that shirt manufacturer or that CD printer or that
the
artist
album
who
or
did the
artist.
cover.
Yep.
Right. So
And
there's multiple artists involved.
the other point is, to beat dead horses. Now venues are also charging the artists a higher percentage, which they shouldn't charge
Yes.
any percentage because there's already a gig. They're set up there. It should already work out together, but they're charging even more money for percentage of the profit that's already low off the merch.
Yeah. Yep, that's been a thing. Depending on the city, that's been a thing,
Right. It's gotten
and that
worse. It's
that'll be a different percentage city to city, and sometimes it's just on soft merch, You know, every
Shit,
place is different,
I know
but
it's
I
ridiculous.
know
It's
it's been an
ridiculous.
increasing squabble. Yeah.
I've been hearing about it even more and more and more how bad it's hurting people. And so that's the main goal here. So I mean, the new album, I'm listening to it. The other, I do one question. I was listening, I'm like the challenge of recreating the voice of
Huh.
doing James.
Okay, so the challenge,
Yeah,
here's the biggest challenge, all
yeah,
right, is that people get older, right? So like when you're 5, your voice is not the same when you're 10. It's not the same when you're 15, 20, 30,
hmm
40. Your voice changes, you know.
right.
So this band is now old enough where maybe I don't know it or notice it, but my approach of how I get to the voice is different. Now I can get to the voice quicker because now to me it's just like it's
Right.
just a part of my life. You know what I mean?
Well, that's what I
Um,
meant. Is it like it's like you? Here's my example. I mean to step on you, but for people that are listening, playing guitar and singing, if you don't do one or the other, the first time you do it, you try doing it, it's a nightmare.
oh, it's a disaster. Yeah, believe me, I know.
But you do it, but you've been doing it long enough, so you kind of but you get it after a while,
Yeah,
and that's what I'm saying. So, but did the voice change? Because obviously you do different types of singing too. Did you
it's
just
probably
fall into it
changed,
now, or do you
sure.
get kind of mixed up sometimes?
It's changed, but I mean, also if you listen, you know, I've tried to change it along with James Hetfield's own voice changing. You
Hmm
know, because you listen to his approach on vocals, you know, so yes, it's going to change. It's going to be different. But there's going to be you might have the same inflections but a different timbre to your voice, you know.
Right.
But it's the way you hit a consonant or a syllable or hold a note, you know, hold that A sound or that double O sound, the classic James Hetfieldisms, you know. But
You
but
hit some
then
good
for
notes with it.
me,
You do it good. Where it's not even mocking him. I'm like, man, that could be James Hetfield right there. Like you do it good.
oh dude, we were on we were on the Eddie Trunk show, and this lady called in and was thoroughly convinced that Metallica was in the studio and just screwing around, and why are they not just owning up to it? And no, that was us. And
Is
she
that
was
not the best?
insisting,
That is the
yeah, she
best
was
compliment you
insisting
could
to
have
Eddie
ever
Trunk that
gotten.
he's just like, no, no, you have Metallica new studio. Why don't you just say it? He's like, no, it's not Metallica. It's Jaymz Lennfield of Beatallica. It's just like, no, it's not. It's Metallica. And he's like, no.
If
He
there's
was
anybody to
thoroughly
argue with, it's
convinced.
Eddie. It's totally Eddie's the best. I love when Eddie argues with people. I love it. I love it.
Yeah, yeah, it
It's
was
cool.
funny, man. It was funny.
That is a great compliment, though. It really is.
Yeah, oh yeah. But here's, I mean, the other thing too about the voice is like, if you're a fan of like 80s metal and the whole double O
hmm
sound, ooh, you cannot you cannot say that you're a fan of 80s heavy metal without saying you didn't hear that from Celtic Frost and Hellhammer because
Right.
that's where it started. You know, so
Well,
some of
they'll
the way
admit
that
that.
I approach it has some Tom G. Warrior in there. Sure,
Oh, snap! I didn't even
sure.
think about that. Because like I hear the other different things. I didn't even think about that. 'Cause, yeah, it does make sense now.
You know, and a lot of the other stuff that I'm listening to is like I'm the one in Beatallica that listens to more death metal, black metal.
hmm
So some of the passages or held notes or lower stuff that I'll do has more of that sort of pull and feel just for a little bit, just a little bit,
Well, I think
you
you
know.
don't. I think that's one thing I was thinking about. Like, as asking my point of view vocally is you don't do it. You do it like we're singing, but to a point where it's not a parody. Because and that's the point. Is you do some stuff that sounds like James. It sounds like James. It's not like imitating being funny James. It's like what James would kind of sound like. But then you do other parts of the songs that are other parts, other voicings.
Yeah.
So it keeps it from being a parody. You're like kind of just you feel like you just listen to an original song that you already know, but it's not. You know what I mean? It kind of puts a
Yeah,
weird stamp on it.
I know that we were doing God, what song? I think it was a song off the Abbey Road album. I can't remember what song it was, but our former drummer was in the studio with me, and he's lying on the floor, and he's just chuckling, laughing, and he just looks up at me and he goes, "Dude, James Hetfield is gonna punch you in the face," because it's so exact, but there's a little bit of haha, you know, in this section or whatever, and he's gonna punch you in the face, and I'm just like, he'll be fine, he'll be good,
Yeah.
he's cool, he'll be fine, they'll get it,
But
you know what I mean?
they have actually heard you guys. So I mean, they are cool
Oh
with you
yeah,
guys.
you know, we're all good together. Yeah, I mean, every time that they get into the Midwest, we're usually having a meet, and it's a little bit just to clear the air on some stuff, and most of it's just kind of to hang out a little bit, you know.
Which is actually the other question:
I know they're coming to Chicago next year, so.
the legality challenges. Once you put things as a parody, it gives a little more leeway for a lot of bands. But one of the bands that is the two bands in the world that are really strict about the copyright. You could have picked two more bands that were more strict, that have
I
more
know,
people watching stuff than
I
the
know,
Beatles
I
and
know,
Metallica.
I know.
So it's like you
You're
have
Glenn
bands doing
Danzig,
that.
you know. But
You
yeah,
wouldn't even do anything. There'd be somebody outside your window with the binoculars,
I
just
know.
watching you.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know,
I mean, sure. I mean, it. The way that we kind of look at it is, look, we're 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 asking for some
yeah,
slack to use some people's stuff, right?
yeah,
So now there has to be some gentlemanly politeness when you do this, you know.
mhm,
If some licensors, in which they have said no, you can't use this song or this thing or whatever, we haven't published it. We can do it live. And that's why I
yeah,
said earlier, if you come up to to a Beatallica show, you're going to hear some stuff live that we can't put on record. That's what I mean by that. There's some things that are just not going to get permitted. And
really.
that's okay. There's no use in getting mad over it. It's not my
No,
stuff. You know what I mean? Would we like to do it? Sure. But we can always do it live. That's
but
all good.
seriously, some songs would be okay and some wouldn't be. It feels like it'd be all or nothing. I mean, like,
Not necessarily, because it depends on what licensors own what tracks. Now, the Metallica side of life, they give us a blank check. They said, yeah, do whatever you want. And we'll say to them, do you want to hear it first? And they're like, no, we trust you.
people
You
hear
know,
this
there's
because
going to be, you know, there'll be
yeah,
no, we trust that that there will be no slander, there will be no libel, there will be no demeaning, you know, or
yeah,
whatever. Like, and so we have built that relationship with
good.
Metallica that the biggest heavy metal band in the world says to us, yeah, whatever. I mean,
That says a
that's
lot
pretty
about
cool in
that
itself,
says a lot
right?
about them. That's a lot about them, and it says a lot about you
Yeah.
guys. And in fact, and it does because it's a mixture of, and that's why they like it, is because you guys aren't a parody. You're a fun band that takes two really great music types and puts them together, puts your own stuff on them, has some fun with it, with the characteristics of it, but honors it, and that's the fine line.
I mean,
You know,
one of my favorite stories when hanging out with Lars is, you know, like he'll say, okay, so what do you guys, work on? What are some of the other song titles? And just throwing song titles at him and just watching him laugh.
laugh,
Or just he just puts his head down and kind of goes like this.
yeah. Yeah, well, I still love hearing them. Actually, I caught something you just posted earlier today, the radio piece on your YouTube page, and my sweet Phantom Lord. I
Oh,
love, yeah. To me, and I hadn't heard that one before, so I laughed because I love hearing the new things. I actually wrote a message to my friend who's also in Beatallica. I said, hey, I said, get any questions for these guys? And I actually I said, hey, dude. And he goes, I got you. I hear you doing that. Like he could hear me, hey, dude. I was even like
yeah,
half thinking that when I did it. He's like, I got you on that one. But it's so funny, the titles. It makes you
awesome.
smile and laugh.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we'll see him at the gig too, man.
Yeah, you might see him too. It'd be pretty awesome. But so people check you out, go to the Beatallica website, go support them on YouTube, Facebook, and probably Instagram too, right? I
IG,
haven't checked the IG.
yeah,
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll be on Spotify and Apple and everything, you know.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
you
mean, if you just did a Google search on Beatallica, you'll find everything. You know, there's 7 million links or whatever that, you know, but it's Beatallica.org, Beatallica official on YouTube, you know, Facebook, IG, you can dial everything up.
the
Our
link is
stuff
right
is very
below.
accessible, you
The
know.
link is below, and I believe you actually have links off your website. The link for your website is below, and I believe everything's actually linked off that one too. People are that lazy. I think you have like a link
Oh
tree and
yeah,
you're everything
sure.
there.
Yeah, one
So
thing can
the
lead
links
to
are right
another.
underneath there. So click when you get done watching this or listening, click on the link, and it brings you right to the world of Beatallica to
Yeah,
immerse yourself.
and you know, and the tour starts June 7th in Lakewood, Ohio. And then it takes us up through Buffalo, Teaneck, New Jersey. We're hitting Brooklyn. We're hitting Delaware, Connecticut, Massachusetts for a couple shows, Pennsylvania for a couple shows. One near Cincinnati, Columbus, Ohio is also in there. We just did Milwaukee and Chicago, you know, so
Awesome.
and then more dates coming, you know. But yeah, definitely coming out to the gigs.
Yeah,
That's that's the way to do it, man. You know.
support the
And if
band.
you ever hit us up on social media, we always hit you back, you know. So
The
that's
fans
always,
reach out. You reach out.
you know.
You're very accessible. I want to thank you for being on the show. It's been awesome.
Yeah, man. Yeah, thanks for having us. Check out the Devolver album. We're actually putting up a new store on our website here over the next couple weeks too, as well. But so if you see stuff at gigs, you know, and like I said, if it's sold out or whatever, you can either get it online or we'll get you a receipt. We'll actually give you a receipt and then mail it back out to you. So, you know, whatever it takes. We just want you to get out to the shows and pick up some tunes and, you know, wear a
Have
shirt
some
to
fun.
school and, you know, do all that stuff too, you know. So,
Excellent. Thank you, man. Everybody check them out. Very cool.
all right, sounds good, man.
Take care.